Good morning, everyone. May God's peace be with each one here today. I was thinking about that last song we just read, Faith is the Victory. It's so special. We have something that people thousands of years ago believed in. We still can believe in the same thing. We can still have confidence. We can still have faith in Jesus like they did many, many years ago. My title for today is Don't Camp in January. We hear a lot of people complain about how tough it is around Christmas, and especially right after Christmas. January and February are officially the loneliest, most depressing months. Some of that is due to weather, but a lot of that has to do with lifestyle and unwise choices made around the holidays. But as Christians, if we live our mountaintop or Christmas wisely, our period after Christmas or January should be easier to live, even when the actual circumstances are not very good or even very, very hard. Something to remember as you go through a trying time in your life is only things of substance cast shadows. Toothpicks do not cast shadows. Redwoods do. So if you go through something trying, there is something of substance there. So my goal with this message is to encourage us that the mountains prepare us and the valleys prove us. But let's not camp too long in the valley or on the mountain. We are on a journey, and if we have heaven as our goal, we dare not start camping out too long. And when I say camping, I don't mean resting. I mean refusing to move when God calls us forward. So my first of 4 points is keep hiking. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 2. Let's read that whole chapter. Matthew chapter 2. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet, And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy, and when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which is spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth, and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. And he arose, and took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea, in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee, And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. So there is a lot of movement in this chapter. The wise men were following the star, and they did lose it for a bit. And then they moved back. They lost the star for a bit. Then they moved on and found Jesus. And instead of moving in with Jesus there, for some reason, they kept moving back home again. Then the angels got moving. They told Joseph to flee. And Joseph, being obedient, got up and started moving his family quickly. Then Herod started moving to fulfill his evil intentions. And then the family moves back to Israel again. Not exactly where they had seemed to have originally planned, but they moved. So nobody in this chapter was allowed to stay very long where they were. I'm sure there's years in there. It's not all that fast as fast as it is reading it, but there was a lot of movement there. Sometimes when hiking down the narrow path to heaven, we lose focus of the guiding light, like the wise men did, for different reasons, but often because the answer seems obvious to us, like it did for the wise men. But how much time do you and I waste sitting on the recliner in the king's palace instead of jumping back on our camels or elephants or horses or whatever they rode? These men didn't seem to waste much time. When they plopped their tent in the wrong place, they got schooled, they took it to heart, like a wise man always does, and they took off down the path again. Then they find Jesus. They present their gifts, and like wise men, they realize that as special of a place and time as this was, their job was done after that, and they, like a good guest, left again before their welcome was over. Sometimes we get called to do a deed many praise us for, like these wise men. We know the story very well. I think most people know the story of the wise men. We would love to camp out at that location. We never hear from these wise men again, as far as I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure they lived the rest of their lives happy to have had a part in Jesus' birth. Are you okay with being used for something big or small and then disappear from most humans' view, and probably for most, or all of us, even history books? Some of us love the public eye, and we have to be okay with hiking in the shadows. Others wish they could always stay in the shadows and struggle when they are called on to walk through open meadows. But let's be faithful where the path lies that God has for us. Then we get to the part where the angel tells Joseph to move, and like a wise man, he does it quickly. Fathers, how quick are we to move when there is spiritual danger threatening our family? When we get warned about something, we usually don't get told that all the 2-year-olds and younger will get killed, or whatever the case is that we get warned about. I don't think Joseph knew that. But we must still move in the direction God lays on our hearts. Even Herod didn't stay still. I believe a big part of the reason why we must keep moving is because the devil keeps moving. He is not stationary. It is much harder for a lion to sneak up on a moving animal versus one rolled up in a sleeping bag snoring away. And when we are moving, it is easier for God to direct us right or left. A lot of you have cows. How easy is it to herd a group of sleeping cows? Once you have them in a bunch, once you have them going in some sort of direction, you can start guiding them. But until you have them up in a herd and moving in some direction, it's very hard to get any good direction going. After a while, God calls Joseph back to the country he originally got sent away from. We are often led down the same path we feel we were earlier blocked from going, as Paul was as well. Or we get directions we believe to be confusing. But when your story is written, it will make sense. So keep hiking. God uses transitions, but we humans keep thinking of arrivals. We need to arrive here, we need to arrive there. So the question for us is, where might God be asking me or you to move? But we keep waiting for more certainty instead of just being obedient. Then let's turn to Matthew 14. The second point there is no time to pitch a tent. We'll go ahead and read this whole chapter here. At that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works to show themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart, give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude, and they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent into all that country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as were touched were made perfectly whole. So this chapter starts at a low point, where John the Baptist was killed, and then it moves on to where the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, then Peter sinking in the waves, and Jesus healing many people, some just by touching his clothes. We can sometimes relate so well to this roller coaster of emotions and activities in today's world. Sometimes we think it's worse. I don't know if it is. I think it's probably just different. Maybe it is worse. I don't know. Sometimes we have multiple mountains and valleys in one day. Jesus was grieved, exhausted, interrupted. How many of you parents can feel along with that? Sometimes we don't make promises like Herod did, but sometimes we make unwise promises that we don't want to or are unable to keep. Like Jesus after John the Baptist's death, sometimes we parents really long for some time for collecting our thoughts, for prayer, or a little nap. But again, God has called us to minister to our little multitude, from helping them with the question of who is more important, to teaching them, what is that to thee, follow thou me, or they're pulling at the hem of our garments and crying for help. As much as we love our children, like the disciples, there are times we feel like telling the whole multitude of them to go take a hike and buy their own food. But praise the Lord, he gives strength for the moment. Sometimes we get patience out of thin air and calm words, but only when we ask for them. And then, mercifully, there are times like verse 33. The disciples said, "Of a truth, thou art the Son of God." The faith and trust our little ones have in our feeble strength or wisdom is very humbling and endearing. So whatever your current situations, God gives you the mountains and valleys you need to keep you going faithfully. I believe we should think more along the lines of, He gives me what I need for my spiritual best, not He piles everything He can on me to get me as close to the point of despair as possible. Either He is a loving Father and wants only what is best for us, or He is not worth serving at all. And we all know the truth. So let's live so others can see our trust in Him. Point number 3, your trail is assigned, not a mistake. So Jesus constrained the disciples to get into the boat. That wasn't their decision necessarily. He told them to. The following storm wasn't accidental. It was part of the lesson. Some of us are way too busy analyzing our mistakes in every movement to see why we are hurting or sad or sick. But very often it is January just because the calendar pages come in a certain order, and I have to trust that today. There is definitely a time for deep reflection, but why not do more of it when you are on the mountain? We can look farther, gain more perspective of what was behind and in front of you. If you spend Christmas celebrating Jesus' birth, wouldn't that, or doesn't that, help the literal January or February feel more hopeful than if you spent your whole paycheck on gifts, alcohol, or parties? I believe a lot of people get drunk on Christmas. I don't know what an alcohol hangover feels like, but I looked it up a little bit, and they say you get a bad headache, a dry mouth, intense tiredness, and low tolerance for light. And I thought that was surprisingly similar to the attitudes and problems we see after the holidays. Have you ever met someone so sour they didn't even like good news because they were so grouchy? Maybe some of us have even felt like that at times. I don't believe giving gifts at Christmas is evil at all, but putting too much emphasis and financial burden on it, there is some point not much difference between the excess of giving and receiving gifts and the parties surrounding that, to the use of excess use of alcohol or other vices that drag down the body and soul. Moderation is important, just as important on the mountain as it is in the valley. So let's look at Joseph's life on our trail being assigned. If you think hard seasons means you did something wrong, Joseph's story challenges that very well. Let's turn to Genesis 45. This is where he's talking to his brothers. It doesn't have all the details in it, but we know the details. Genesis 45, 1 through 15. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by, and he cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years, in which there shall be neither earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of your brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren, and wept upon them, and after that his brethren talked with him. Joseph never would have wished for all the evil things that happened to him. He was given a special coat. That was not, I believe, his idea. That seemed to be his father's idea, and it seemed to be a good thing. But among other things, it led to him being hated. There are things today that feel good to us, whether it is our choice or whether it is something that God puts in our life, but it may also bring hardships. And that seems like that was just part of God's plan. His dreams were sent by God, I believe. Sometimes we think maybe he shouldn't have said them, but I don't know. I don't want to judge Joseph. I think there's a reason why he said them. I don't know that he did wrong with that. But he did not come up with the dreams. They were from God, and they gave him lots of heartache. Then he was thrown in the pit instead of being killed. And as he was at the bottom of the pit, I imagine he did not feel thankful. Whether he knew that they wanted to kill him or not, or maybe he was afraid they would leave him there and just let him die. This was a horrible experience. Then he was sold as a slave so he could get free passage to Egypt. Some of our sicknesses and troubles, not all, but many, become free passage to places we would never have gone willingly. But we can't see it yet. Sometimes we can't see it because we're so busy fighting God about the direction. Then he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, so he would be in prison to meet Pharaoh's 2 servants. Wouldn't there have been a better way? I don't know, but if it had all been simple, we couldn't take so many lessons from this story and many other stories in the Bible. So are you okay with people learning from your hardships? Or are we so selfish that we throw a fit every time we are the lesson in endurance or whatever it is, facing a hardship, so that others can learn from us as well? Are we so busy trying to analyze our way out of a season? Are we too busy trying to analyze our way out of a season that God is asking us to walk through? And then the last point, number 4, no camping on the summit. God gives us mountains, but he doesn't give us the deeds to them. Valleys come with lessons, but not life sentences. They're not prisons. Let's turn to Matthew 17, 1 through 9. Matthew 17, 1 through 9. And after 6 days Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias, talking with them. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them, and said, Arise, and be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. And as they came down the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And then in verse 14 it talks about the multitudes that were waiting for him there. So Jesus taught a few different things here. One of them was, as good of an experience as this was, even he had no business living on this mountain yet. There were still multitudes waiting at the bottom for his help and healing. A thought I had as I was studying this, how often do we help people when we are on a mountain? Moses couldn't see or help the people when he was up on the mountain. Jesus came down the mountain and helped the people again. Paul had a vision where God explained things to him, but he didn't help anyone until the vision was over. I believe there are times when we do, but I think they're a lot more rare than we think. Just think about that. Real mountains and figurative mountains both serve as reminders of heaven. But right now, if you're alive, it is your duty to joyfully live in this valley land and appreciate the few moments on the mountain that get scattered through your life, through our lives. And let's be okay with it when it seems like other people get to spend more time on the mountain than what we do, what I do. But one of the most important secrets to breathing mountain air is taking time for personal devotions, which sadly often starts with going to bed early. So mountains reveal God and valleys reveal faithfulness. So in closing, I want to encourage each one of us. If you see me or any brother or sister of yours start camping out too long, let's approach them calmly, lovingly, and see if we can help them pack up their courage, roll up their bed, and help them get moving again. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for each other is not to try to explain the season, but just to help each other get moving again. We cannot see exactly where Satan is crouching, so let's keep moving so we don't fall prey to his tactics. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Lord, we come before you this morning again. Thank you for giving us this opportunity again. Lord, help us to appreciate the path you have put us on, the direction you are sending us, and help us to trust you that you do what is best for us. Even though it does not feel like it, help us to have a bigger faith than just what our eyes can see and our ears can hear. Help us to really, truly trust that you know what is best. Help us to help each other. Help us not to try to make this race as quick as we can by ourselves, Lord, because we will fall off the trail. Help us to help each other along and help us to follow your light and not get sidetracked with all the markers that Satan puts out that he would so much love for us to follow. We just ask that you be with us this holiday season. Help us to live it and enjoy it wisely. I believe it is there for our good, but then help us to use it wisely so that afterwards the joy would carry us on and it wouldn't grow stale. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.